mapping and patenting of human and animal DNA, and the genetic engineering of human, animal, and plant life. They are also developing chemical, bacteriological, and psychological weaponry, as well as tectonic and climate weaponry.
Every placenta and umbilical cord was tossed as medical waste. Today, doctors have turned this medical waste into medical miracles. Not only has God, in His wisdom and goodness, created the placenta and the umbilical cord to nurture and protect the precious life of an unborn child, but now we know that another gift awaits us immediately after birth. Something very special is left behind: cord blood that is teeming with life-saving stem cells. Indeed, it remains one of the best-kept secrets in America that umbilical cord blood stem cells and adult stem cells in general are curing people of a myriad of terrible conditions and diseases. Over 70 diseases in adults as well as in children. Cord blood transplants are on the cutting edge of science for the treatment of leukemia. In June, researcher Dr. Mary Apin of the Medical College of Wisconsin said that in treating leukemia in adult patients, cord blood is so flexible that it even worked when it was not even an exact match. Quote, "What we found is when you look at the outcome of leukemia-free survival, which is the likelihood of a patient being alive without disease, it's the same whether you are transplanting using an adult graft, which is from an adult donor, or a cord blood unit." Very promising results are also being found in children with leukemia who undergo cord blood transplants, with 60% of patients alive and leukemia-free at 60 months. In addition to treating blood cancers, clinical trials are underway for the treatment of many other cancers, such as breast and kidney, and treating solid tumors. Human clinical trials show promise in treating type 1 diabetes, cerebral palsy, metabolic storage diseases, brain injury, and respiratory distress in newborns, spinal cord injury, and cartilage injuries. Cord blood stem cell transplants can cure sickle cell anemia, one of the most horrific diseases suffered by and affecting 1 out of every 500 African Americans in America. The outlook, or the legislation, I should say, that is before us, thankfully has already cleared the Senate and will soon be down to the President's desk for signature. The legislation before us lays out many important goals and benchmarks so that more patients will be able to receive the treatments that they so desperately need. Dr. Joanne Kurtzberg with Duke University Medical Center recently stated in a review of the success of cord blood transplantations, and I quote her, "Cord blood transplantation is now an established field with enormous potential. In the future, it may emerge as the source of cells for cellular therapies focused on tissue repair and regeneration." This is a great bill. It is bipartisan and deserves the support of the entire body. And I yield back to my friend, balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman.
I beg your pardon. I'll go ahead and yield myself 1 minute and urge passage of S3751. Will reauthorize the Stem Cell Therapeutic and Research Act that was enacted in 2005 and is now being implemented. The Bill Young Cell Transplant Program provides supports to patients with leukemia, lymphoma, and sickle cell who need a potentially life-saving bone marrow or cord blood transplant. One of the goals of the program is to increase the amount of marrow donors and cord blood units. The program has been a success, and the reauthorization will allow us to continue the good work that was started in 2005. I urge my colleagues to support the bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New Jersey.
Mr. Speaker, I would also yield back the balance of my time and urge passage of the bill.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass Senate 3751? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative.
Mr. Speaker,
gentleman,
I object to the vote on the grounds that a quorum is not present, and make a point of order that a quorum is not present.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the...
Now, I'm a Christian. I praise Jesus every Sunday. But there are a lot of Muslims who are decent, good, kind people. I don't think they are any less children of God. Now, I'm a Christian. I praise Jesus every Sunday. But there will always be people, many of goodwill, who do not share my view on the issue of choice. On this fundamental issue, I will not yield, and Planned Parenthood will not yield.
In a sharp reversal from his predecessor, President Barack Obama is clearing the way for federal funding of embryonic stem cell research.
I believe we have been given the capacity and will to pursue this research, and the humanity and conscience to do so responsibly.
Obama signed an executive order Monday, lifting restrictions on research that proponents believe could lead to cures for ailments from diabetes to paralysis.
So it truly represents a major move forward and will really facilitate clinical trials and lead us into being able to treat patients better and more effectively.
Stem cell research became a divisive issue under George W. Bush. The former president limited funding for research on the grounds that using embryos was morally wrong and should not be funded by the government. The White House says Monday's announcement is about more than stem cells. They say it signals the administration's commitment to letting science, not political ideology, guide policies on everything from renewable energy to climate change.
Promoting science isn't just about providing resources, it's also about protecting free and open inquiry. It's about letting scientists, like those who are here today, do their jobs, free from manipulation or coercion, and listening to what they tell us, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient.
Critics say it's not science they oppose, just science that destroys human life.
It's really a stark choice as to whether or not you're going to allow these embryos to develop into babies or to use them for experimentation that destroys them.
Obama says he understands the emotions on both sides of the debate, but believes a majority of Americans support increasing funding for research. Julie Pace, The Associated Press, The White House.
This is CNN Breaking News.
First, I want to begin with some breaking news this hour. Federal funding for embryonic stem cell research is now on hold. A U.S. District Court judge here in Washington issuing a preliminary injunction a short while ago. In the ruling, the judge says the research involves the destruction of human embryos against the will of Congress. Now, this comes over a year after President Obama signed an executive order repealing Bush-era limits on federal tax dollars to study embryonic stem cells. Many Americans see that research as key to finding cures for spinal cord injuries, cancer, Parkinson's, other diseases. I want to bring in our senior legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin, who is on the phone to help us explain what this means. Now, Jeffrey, in covering President Bush for all those years, one of the things he was dead set against was allowing for these federal dollars to be used for embryonic stem cell research. What he proposed was a compromise, saying, look, no more new funding, just allow the funding for 21 existing lines. President Obama reversed that, and now we have the courts involved in this. What does this mean today?
Well, the bottom line is this is a major setback for stem cell research and for the Obama administration, because what the judge said was that in 1996, while President Clinton was in office, Congress passed a law that said there could not be any use of federal money for research where embryos are destroyed. Both President Bush and President Obama worked within the framework because the president unilaterally can overturn a law. By expanding the opportunities for federal funding of research, as President Obama did shortly after he was elected, Judge Royce Lamberth, the judge in Washington, today said he, President Obama, violated that 1996 law. He tried to basically say that that law didn't count anymore. And presidents can't unilaterally overturn an act of Congress, and that's why the judge suspended the Obama rule today.
So, Jeff, what does this mean in terms of projects that have already been funded? Do they continue or do they stop? Or does this mean that there's just not additional funding for new projects? How does this work today?
Well, as usual, those questions will mean more work for lawyers, because the Judge Lamberth's 15-page opinion does not really deal with all the details of how this will play out in the real world. To be sure, the Obama administration will appeal this ruling to the D.C. Circuit, and it may well be overturned. This case has already been to the appeals court once, but if it stands up, it will certainly cut way back on federal funding for stem cell research, and it is not clear from Judge Lamberth's order what happens to those projects that are underway as we speak.
And Jeff, just real quick here, what is the next step in the legal process? Where does this go?
Well, the Obama administration, I assume, will go to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and ask for a stay of this ruling while it's appealed, but the anti-abortion, pro-life forces who were behind this lawsuit, among others, will certainly oppose that, and this is yet another battleground broadly defined of the abortion struggle in America, because ultimately that's what stem cell research and the fight over embryos has really come down to.
Okay, Jeffrey Toobin, thank you so much. Again, another potential wedge issue that may weigh in the midterm elections. This decision coming down today, just earlier this afternoon. Now to a huge and hard-fought milestone in the Iraq